expect is for someone to pull out a knife.
The unprovoked attack triggers a citywide manhunt and a media frenzy.
It's all over the news.
It had everything that a sensational story would need.
Even Oprah commented on it.
But was it really an act of random violence?
This crime was so shocking.
It was a horrifying, horrifying experience.
What's evil in this world, man?
Or was it cold-blooded murder?
Something just wasn't right.
The car was never there.
I didn't know who he was anymore.
December 1st, 2018. It's just after midnight on a chilly Saturday in Baltimore, Maryland, also known as Charm City.
It's known as Charm City for a reason. There's culture, there's food, there's music. It's an amazing town.
But it's also a troubled one.
Baltimore's a dangerous city. There really is no denying that there's a problem with homicides, shootings, carjackings, armed robberies.
Baltimore has been on the top 10 list of violent crimes for a number of years, unfortunately.
And this bleak winter morning, it looks as if the city some call Bodymore Murderland is about to claim another victim.
Baltimore City 911.
I got a serious emergency.
The caller is 52-year-old Keith Smith.
Some panhandler just stabbed my wife.
He says they've been driving down the street in East Baltimore when his wife, 54-year-old Jacqueline Smith, saw a woman with a baby begging on a street corner.
When Jacqueline spotted the baby, she asked him to pull over.
My wife tried to give us some money, and a guy came over, and he started stabbing my wife.
He's completely shocked.
They snatched her pocketbook and snatched her necklace off her neck.
And then they were gone.
I jumped out the car and he ran.
Okay, sir, you're still at the location right now, right?
I'm heading to the hospital.
He's hysterical, and he's trying to get his wife help.
I'm gonna go to Johns Hopkins.
Johns Hopkins Hospital, which is only a few blocks away, has one of the best trauma centers in the country.
While Keith's adult daughter tends to Jacqueline from the back seat, the dispatcher directs Keith to the emergency room.
You should better pull straight up and they'll be able to help you out.
But only if they're able to make it in time.
How's your wife doing?
She's not talking, man. She's not talking. She's not talking, man. Oh, my God. You stabbed her.
54-year-old Jacqueline Smith had always been a generous and compassionate woman.
She's a very giving person, a very kind person.
It's a Bible-believing Christian woman.
She was very involved in the church.
She was also an accomplished career woman.
Jacqueline Smith was a graduate of North Carolina A&T University, where she majored in engineering.
She's working as an electrical engineer, making good money.
She was just someone who a lot of people respected and wanted to be around.
Good morning, Jacqueline.
The only hitch in her life was the failure of her marriage, but she didn't let that stop her.
Okay.
Jacqueline is someone that has progressed in her career. She's been able to manage raising 2 children successfully, even getting past the trauma of divorce and successfully rise to the top.
That first dance soon led to a first date, and then another.
They had a lot of different things in common.
They both had grown children who were entering adulthood themselves.
And like Jacqueline, Keith was eager to make a fresh start.
Later on in your years, you don't want to wait too long to start a new relationship. So shortly after, about 3 months later, he's proposing to her on Christmas Eve.
Oh, there's one more thing that I had.
Okay.
I know it hasn't been long, but just wondering if you would.
Sometimes a quick proposal can give you pause, but not for Jacqueline.
This is the win that she was looking for.
Keith moved into Jacqueline's townhouse in suburban Baltimore, and they began building a life together.
This is the moment that Jacqueline has been working hard towards. She is happy and content.
She's feeling like her prayers were answered, you could say.
But now Keith is driving through East Baltimore, desperate for help, as Jacqueline bleeds out in the seat beside him.
Oh my God.
His wife, being the kind-hearted woman she was, rolled down her window to give some panhandlers some money. And the panhandler reaches inside the car, robs her, and then starts stabbing her violently.
It happened so damn fast.
After the stabbing, the dispatcher guides Keith to Johns Hopkins University Hospital.
If you're making a right on the Wolf, the Hopkins is on your right when you get down there at, it should be Orleans.
Okay, I see it now, I see it.
But finding the hospital doesn't mean the crisis is over.
It is a big, big campus. It's not like a small country hospital. We are talking many blocks, many buildings.
Anyone, even in their right mind and calm, is going to have difficulty finding the exact entrance of the building.
I'm in the wrong side.
Keith is frantic.
Finally, after several agonizing minutes circling the sprawling medical complex, Keith manages to find the ER.
Please, I need help. My wife just got stabbed by some panhandler. She's in the car.
Then, as the ER staff rushed Jacqueline inside, Keith broke down completely.
Oh my God, baby. Hold on, baby. Hold on, baby.
Jacqueline Smith had finally found happiness with her second husband, Keith.
She was looking for love second time around, and she was able to find that love.
It just looks like the perfect setup for both of these people that are in their 50s finally finding love and making this thing work.
But now, in the early morning hours of December 1st, 2018, Keith has just rushed Jacqueline to a Baltimore hospital.
Hold on, Jackie, hold on. Help! Help!
Help us!
Hold on, baby.
Come on. Please hurry.
Please, please.
They pulled over so Jacqueline could give money to a panhandler. And when she rolled the window down, the man who was with a woman attacked Jacqueline.
Jackie, hold on, Jackie! Oh, God!
Nurses at the ER immediately rush her into emergency surgery.
What is going to happen to the love of his life?
By 1 a.m., he has the answer.
The nurse came back out to talk to Keith, and he could tell by the look on her face, it was not good news.
We did everything we could for her.
No.
I'm so sorry.
No!
There was nothing they could do.
When Keith sits down with Baltimore homicide detectives several hours later, he's still trying to contain his grief.
He's playing it over and over in his mind, blaming himself, and the tears just stream down his face.
You didn't do anything wrong, okay? I should have known. You can't blame yourself for this.
Once Keith regains his composure, he walks the investigators through what happened.
He and Jacqueline had gone to East Baltimore to celebrate his daughter Valeria's birthday.
They went to dinner at the VFW. They were enjoying themselves.
We had a beautiful time, man.
He says it was almost midnight when they left the VFW and headed east towards Valeria's home.
They were giving her a ride before they headed back to their home in Aberdeen.
According to Keith, while they were driving, his wife spots a panhandler.
We stopped at the stop sign. That was the girl over there.
She's holding a sign that says, "Can't feed my baby, need help."
She was holding the baby, and I was like, wow, how you gonna be out here with a baby this late at night?
He described a woman in her 20s, somebody who might have been addicted to drugs.
Not that it mattered to Jacqueline.
He said Jacqueline was so moved and troubled by this that she wanted to give her some money.
Look, pull over, pull over. Okay. Hey, sweetie, how are you?
She called the girl over.
Here, God bless you, okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, the guy just walked over. Yeah, man, I thank your wife, man.
He described a man in his 30s who was wearing a heavy jacket with a goatee.
But according to Keith, when the man leaned in the window, it wasn't to say thank you.
The man grabbed her necklace, grabbed her wallet, and began stabbing her.
I was in shock. I couldn't believe it.
He doesn't know what to do.
What did the knife look like? If you could tell, I know these things happen so quickly. That's okay. That's okay. So you just saw the motion?
He's not able to describe the murder weapon for the police.
When the stabbing occurred, what happened next? Did they just start running?
They started, he snapped her necklace off and grabbed her pocketbook and ran.
That was about all the information the detectives were going to get from Keith.
Them her weapons. Her weapons, man.
He starts to break down in front of the officers again.
I should have pulled it off. I should have pulled it off. I should have never let her did that, man.
In those moments, you're thinking, you know, I'm the husband. I'm supposed to protect my wife, and I wasn't able to do that.
All right, we're going to talk to your daughter real quick, then we can get you guys home, okay?
They're just trying to get as much information as they can, as quickly as they can, to aid their investigation.
When the detectives follow up with Keith's daughter, Valeria, her account corroborates her father's.
This girl came up to the car, she was asking for money, and I wasn't paying no mind. It wasn't until this guy came over that it caught my attention.
She was able to see everything that happened to her stepmother.
He came to the car and he was like, yeah, thank you, ma'am, and just started stabbing her. And like, it was literally like 2 seconds, and they were gone.
Look at me! Oh, God.
She was just laying there, she's like, oh, it was just terrible.
However, in addition to confirming her father's story, Valeria also offers up a clue that may help find the killers.
She had seen which way the attackers ran.
She's pretty sure they ran off toward the basketball courts.
She thought they were headed to the Latrobe homes.
That's the project right there.
According to Jacqueline Smith's stepdaughter, the panhandlers who stabbed the 54-year-old electrical engineer fled in the direction of a Baltimore housing project.
One of the things about traumatic incidents, people can have different perceptions of what actually occurred. But in this particular scenario, you had a rather consistent story, so detectives felt like they had some pretty good leads.
However, before heading to the housing project, the detectives have Keith Smith's car towed to the crime lab.
They take the vehicle to search for DNA and other clues as to what exactly occurred that evening.
Then the detectives stop for a look at the street corner where the deadly encounter occurred.
Valley and Chase is in a community with mostly vacant homes. There aren't a lot of people there.
This isn't a typical area where people come to ask for money or food.
But is it the ideal place for an ambush?
Not only were there no witnesses around, the corner wasn't covered by any of the police surveillance cameras.
The detectives spend a few minutes combing the area for evidence.
They're looking for a murder weapon. They're looking for some signs that says there was a struggle.
They were also hoping to find Jacqueline's purse.
Oftentimes, criminals want to get rid of it, get what you can out of it as quickly as possible, then discard it.
Unable to find a discarded knife or purse, the detectives make their way to the Latrobe Homes housing project.
The almost 700-unit complex, built in the 1940s, is one of Baltimore's oldest public housing developments.
They canvassed the area, asking questions. They did not find anyone that matched the description that Valeria and Keith gave for the two people.
Reviewing the Housing Authority's security footage from the night of the stabbing also fails to turn up anyone fitting the suspect's description.
Maybe she got it wrong, and they weren't heading toward the projects.
Latrobe Homes an apparent dead end, the detectives try a different approach.
They put a trace on Jacqueline's credit cards.
While the detectives search for Jacqueline's killers, her murder becomes big news in Baltimore.
There's lots of media attention and media frenzy. It's all over the news, and it's really beginning to cause concern for the community.
This is a crime where anyone could have been a victim. That's what was so scary to the community. Often, homicides will happen in the city because somebody is involved in illegal activity, but panhandling, that's something that any citizen could fall victim to by simply trying to help someone.
It really created a level of fear in the community that wasn't existent previously.
The fear only amplifies after the story goes from local tragedy to national headline.
Oprah Winfrey got hold of this story and she retweeted it to her 40 million plus followers on Twitter.
She's given out money to panhandlers thousands of times, but now she's going to think twice about whether she rolls down that window. That's the impact that it had across the country.
You have people from all over viewing these people who need help as dangerous.
We have been socialized to have a fear of unhoused individuals. And this story played into those fears.
Much of the media's attention centers on Keith.
Well, he's doing a lot of press. He's talking to the media about what happened, and he's trying to get action.
He believes that the panhandlers are the reason that he's lost the love of his life, and he wants something done about it.
This is a husband who wants to make sure no other family experiences what they've experienced.
He wanted there to be a law passed against panhandling in the city.
He wants to name it Jacqueline's Law.
As the debate about panhandlers rages, the Baltimore police may be on the verge of catching Jacqueline's killer.
Yes, ma'am. Can I help you?
A couple of days into this investigation, police received what they believe is a great lead.
The same day that Oprah tweets about the case, a woman approaches an officer sitting in his patrol car outside a Baltimore shopping center.
The woman comes forward saying that she had been calling the tip line but couldn't get through.
She's been trying to get through to let them know, hey, look, I've got a potential lead in this case.
The panhandler murder?
Yeah, that panhandler.
Okay.
I believe I know who did it, and it wasn't no panhandler.
She believed a gentleman by the name of Damon Booth could be responsible.
The woman tells the officer that Damon Booth has been committing armed robberies in the Latrobe Homes area.
Latrobe Homes, of course, was the housing project that the killers were heading toward after the murders.
And that's not the only thing to suggest the tipster may be right.
And does Damon live in Latrobe Homes?
No, he doesn't live there, but his girlfriend lives there.
Okay.
She lives in the housing project with her mom.
Is this the couple that set up Jacqueline and committed this murder?
Petty thief named Damon Booth.
Police further learned from this tipster that Damon Booth has a girlfriend, and the girlfriend happens to live in Latrobe Homes.
Latrobe Homes was the housing project that was a few blocks away from the East Baltimore Street corner where the murder occurred.
Putting two and two together, you have a woman who was posing on the corner with this baby and a guy who comes up from the shadows and commits this crime, and they both flee towards Latrobe Homes.
Everything about the couple fits what Jacqueline's husband, Keith, and the daughter told detectives about the murder.
This is sounding like we're getting very close to cracking this case.
Thanks, officer. Appreciate it. Thanks.
When detectives pull Damon's rap sheet, it looks like they're even closer.
They find out that he does have a criminal record and that he spent 5 years in prison for armed robbery.
Reviewing the details of his armed robbery conviction also raises a big red flag for detectives.
He, in fact, held a knife to someone's throat.
Once the knife comes up, now they're really looking into him.
They may have found the culprit.
When detectives bring Booth in for questioning, he denies any involvement in Jacqueline's murder.
He said, I wasn't even in the area. I don't know what you're talking about.
I never even heard of this woman.
Her murder's all over the news.
Man, I don't even watch TV.
Damon did admit that his girlfriend lived in Latrobe Homes, but he never went to her apartment.
Why's that?
Her mom. She don't like me.
Damon tells investigators that he's not welcome around his girlfriend Tanya's home.
According to Damon, that's why he was nowhere near the crime scene when the stabbing occurred.
We got a room in a motel out on Pulaski Highway.
Which motel?
I forgot the name. It's just past Highland Avenue.
If Damon was telling the truth, that was more than 2 miles from the crime scene.
You were there all night?
Yeah, I was.
Damon tells the investigators that Tanya went to get food around 10 o'clock, but that was it. Otherwise, they were in the motel for the remainder of that evening.
You're free to go.
When detectives bring Damon's girlfriend Tanya in for questioning, she confirms their alibi.
She says she only left out once that night to get something to eat.
I walked like a block down the road to get some food.
What time was that?
About 10.
They give a consistent story.
Detectives were not about to take their word for it, though.
Thank you.
After talking to Tanya, they follow up at the motel where they supposedly spent the night.
Detectives are able to look at surveillance video. They're able to check the guest registry.
The footage corroborates Damon and Tanya's story. It shows them checking in, and it does not show Damon checking out until the following morning.
There's no way they were going to be able to be over at Valley and Chase where this murder occurred.
They may fit the description, but they were nowhere near that crime scene.
Their hot tip turns out to be a dud. And the forensic results from Keith's car are equally disappointing.
When the investigators get the forensics back, there are no fingerprints belonging to anyone other than Keith, Valeria, and Jacqueline.
Now, that's not completely unusual because we're talking about someone who reached inside the car, snatched the necklace, snatched the purse, and stabbed her to death.
So, of course, there wouldn't be any fingerprints inside of the car.
But just when the investigation is running out of steam, things heat up.
The investigators get notified that someone made 3 charges on Jacqueline's credit cards.
They trace the use of the card to 3 juveniles.
Obviously, none of the kids fit the description of Jacqueline's killers.
So how do they end up with her credit cards?
They say they found her purse at a local bus stop.
Knowing nothing about the murder, they'd taken the credit card that was left inside the purse and gone on a spending spree.
After talking to the kids, the detectives head to the bus stop where they reported finding the purse.
That wasn't far from the scene of the crime.
Suspecting the killers passed by the bus stop as they fled the scene, the detectives pull footage from the various city surveillance cameras along the most likely routes.
They're looking at numerous surveillance videos, 27 different cameras.
You kind of can string together things. They might not necessarily point to a specific area, but there is no doubt within a couple blocks, you're going to run across a city watch camera.
As the detectives review the footage from the night of the murder, they once again hit a dead end.
There's no one in any of the footage that matches the description of the perpetrators described by Keith and his daughter Valeria.
However, as they review footage from closer to the crime scene, they notice something else.
None of the video footage reflects Keith's car being in the vicinity.
We're talking about 27 cameras, and the car doesn't show up anywhere.
It was not even along the route from the crime scene to the hospital.
None of the surveillance footage corroborates their story.
After scouring hours of video surveillance looking for the panhandlers who allegedly killed Jacqueline Smith and stole her purse, detectives have made a surprising discovery.
Not only was there no footage of the killers, there was no footage of her husband's car.
The entire route, investigators checked the cameras and were unable at any point to see Keith, Valeria, their vehicle, or either panhandler.
Had Keith and his daughter Valeria simply made a mistake about the route they took to the hospital?
Maybe they get one street mixed up with another.
Or was there another possibility?
Maybe they were lying about this whole thing.
Oh my God, he stabbed her.
Detectives figure there's one way to find out the truth.
Investigators obtained warrants for Keith and Valeria's cell phones, the GPS data, as well as Google data.
And the data suggests that Keith and his daughter have been lying to detectives.
Valeria's cell phone was pinging northwest in Druid Park.
The direct route to her apartment from DFW Hall, where they had dinner, didn't go anywhere near the park.
Investigators were able to determine that Keith and Valeria and Jacqueline were at Druid Hill Park for at least 12 to 16 minutes.
But what were they doing during that time?
Druid Hill Park isn't a place normally where an individual would pull over or stop at in the middle of the night.
It's a perfect place to commit a crime.
Hoping to learn why Keith might want to kill his wife, the detectives quietly reach out to the couple's relatives.
When they talked to Keith's brother, they found a possible motive.
He revealed to detectives that Jacqueline Smith was unhappy.
Jacqueline had been talking about divorce.
A divorce would be a serious hit to Keith's lifestyle.
Jacqueline was the primary breadwinner, and the house was in Jacqueline's name. So Keith had everything to lose if Jacqueline was to walk away from him.
But if she died, Keith had a lot to gain.
It turns out that Jacqueline has a life insurance policy that would pay out a significant amount to Keith.
The detectives found that Keith was already making inquiries about a payout.
After learning of the pending divorce and the possible insurance motive, the detectives make Keith and his daughter the sole focus of their investigation.
The detectives got a court order for a tap on both of their cell phones.
Then the detectives turn up the heat by bringing Keith in for another round of questioning.
They inquire about the life insurance and Keith's interest in the proceeds.
He talks about needing the insurance payment for burial costs.
Do they cover it? The funeral and all that? It's going to get covered.
He gets emotional.
I wouldn't wish this on anybody, man. She's my soulmate.
Detectives don't confront him and let him know that they know he's lying and that his story does not add up. Instead, they bring Valeria back in for another interview.
Questioned by detectives, she repeats the story of how her stepmother was stabbed by a panhandler.
I've never seen anything like that before. That was the worst day of my life.
She didn't know it yet, but she was about to have another bad day.
Detectives confront her with what they know.
What would you say if I tell you your phone has you in Druid Hill Park for a substantial amount of time?
I don't know. I must have been asleep.
The detectives aren't buying it.
I'm gonna be honest with you. We know that's bull.
Though Valeria must know that the detectives know more than what they've disclosed, Valeria doesn't break.
I don't appreciate being called a liar.
She stops the interview.
I'm a lawyer. Okay, all right. Because this is crazy.
Invoking her right to seek an attorney suggests that she knows that she could be in criminal trouble.
The question is, what is her next move?
Detectives were hoping that she'd panic and contact her father about the police interview.
Investigators are listening to their conversations on a wiretap.
Authorities discovered that Keith and Valeria had rented a vehicle.
And the detectives have a pretty good idea where they're headed.
Detectives alert Texas authorities to ensure that Keith and Valeria do not flee the U.S.
Keith and his daughter Valeria are arrested in Texas, very close to the Mexico border.
Hands up, look forward, turn around.
Now all the authorities have to do is prove Keith did kill Jacqueline. And they get one step closer when shortly after Keith and his daughter are extradited back to Maryland, Valeria's attorneys reach out to the prosecutors.
She wants to cut a deal.
This was potentially a huge break for the prosecutors.
Valeria's testimony could be the key to convicting her father of murder. So when the detectives and prosecutors sit down with her, they make it clear what they want.
What we're trying to do is figure out the truth of exactly what happened to Jacqueline Smith on the night of December 1st, 2018.
She agrees to not leave anything out and to tell the truth to the best of her recollection.
Although she claims her memory of that night is a little hazy.
I was doing drugs and I was drinking.
But she does remember one thing clearly.
My father stabbed her.
Jacqueline Smith's stepdaughter, Valeria, has just told police and prosecutors that it wasn't a knife-wielding panhandler who killed the 54-year-old engineer. Instead, she says it was her father, Keith Smith.
We rode to a park, and while we were in the park, my father stabbed her.
But she claims that she didn't have anything to do with the murder.
Valeria told police that she did not know what her father's plans were that evening.
According to Valeria, she thought they were just going out to celebrate her birthday.
Keith and Jacqueline had taken her to the VFW American Legion for her birthday.
She could tell something wasn't right between Jacqueline and her father.
It definitely felt like it was like some tension.
But did she suspect that there could be a murder committed that evening? Not at all.
After leaving the VFW, she says she barely noticed when her dad took a detour to Druid Hill Park.
She says she wasn't paying attention. She was on her phone.
The car slowed down, and that's when I noticed that we was, in like the woods or whatever.
According to Valeria, Jacqueline never even noticed that much.
She states that Jacqueline had dozed off.
And while Jacqueline was still asleep, that's when she saw her father pull out a knife.
You shot me! No! I see him reach and stab her.
Okay. And you're making a motion as
like
his right hand.
Yeah, she was sitting right here, and he stabbed her like this.
Because she was asleep, Jacqueline didn't know what hit her. She gasped, and then it was over.
Did you see how many times he stabbed her?
I don't remember how many times he stabbed her. I wasn't really even trying to, I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
She was stunned.
I was just sitting there. I couldn't believe it.
Okay.
And I was just looking at him like he just looked like I didn't know who he was anymore.
What did you do, Dad?
Get out of the car!
And when he told me to get out the car, I was scared.
She said she was afraid that her father was going to kill her next.
Instead, He gave her an ultimatum.
She says her father said to her, I'm going to make up a story and you need to go along with it or else we're both going to go to jail.
Calm down, calm down. We pulled up, we gave them money, and the panhandler did it. Look at me. You want me to go to jail? You want to go to jail?
She was panicked, in a bad state from the drugs. She agreed to go along with it.
Then, as they drove to the hospital, Keith called 911 and gave the operator the story he'd worked out.
I believe he's going to stab my wife. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Was he crying before he called 911? No.
She says they got rid of the knife and threw it down a storm drain the night of the murder.
She also admitted she ditched Jacqueline's purse at the bus stop a few days after the murder.
He asked me to get rid of it, but to put it somewhere where someone would find it because he wanted somebody to use their card so it would look like a real panhandler did it.
When Keith goes on trial in December of 2021, his daughter is the prosecution's star witness.
When his daughter came into the courtroom to testify, it was as if she didn't even really want to look at him.
Valeria's statements were very damning to Keith.
But was the prosecution's star witness also their greatest weakness?
The defense bring up the fact that she's a drug addict. She has a history of lying, and she's only doing this to get herself off.
They attacked her for not turning in her father before they actually got caught.
The defense also didn't put Keith on the stand to refute anything or to tell his version of the story.
Will smearing Keith's daughter be enough to secure her father's acquittal?
In the end, the jury found Keith guilty of murder.
The judge sentenced him to life in prison.
The family felt justice had been served.
You want to go to jail?
But Keith Smith wasn't alone that night.
Valeria pleads guilty to being an accessory after the fact and gets 5 years in prison.
The prosecution needed her testimony to put Keith away.
And there's no doubt it was Keith who killed the woman he'd promised to love.
Jacqueline Smith never thought it would be her husband who would take her life.
And he brought his own daughter in on it and destroyed his own family and destroyed another family as a result.
However, they weren't the only ones who suffered.
This man maligning people who were panhandling was incredibly harmful for Baltimore's homeless.
He stoked the lie that people who are homeless are a danger.
And that is something that Jacqueline would never have condoned.
Jacqueline was a loving person, an avid churchgoer, believed in God.
And, you know, we'll never get a kind woman back who was known as a very compassionate person.
Dayton, Ohio, the birthplace of aviation, known as Ohio's Gem City. Dayton has a rich history built on innovation and invention. It's also a city hard hit with rampant drugs, violence, mayhem, and murder. And in 1992, a terrifying and unrelenting killing spree thrust Dayton into a modern-day purge. No one knows who will be next as detectives race against the clock to stop a group of bloodthirsty killers. Once their identities and ages are revealed, a shocking reality sweeps through the city, and Dayton's Christmas killings tarnish the city's shine forever. Dayton is located in southwestern Ohio, halfway between Cincinnati and Columbus. What began as an agricultural community quickly grew into a center of industry and innovation thanks to a handful of forward thinkers who called Dayton home. Inventors like the Wright brothers would help put Dayton on the map and, in turn, create a destination for Black workers looking for new opportunities in the Midwest.
Dayton became a mecca, actually. And with the Wright brothers in the invention of the airplane, just made Dayton a place in which people really wanted to be.
A lot of people came up here from Kentucky, Tennessee, looking for manufacturing jobs. And a lot of neighborhoods were formed by those folks.
An area known as the Nickel on Dayton's west side became the center of the Black community.
After church, if you've been good and you had some money, then you came to West Dayton on the bus to walk the Nickel.
We had 5 movie theaters. We had 2 drive-ins. We had pool halls, bowling alleys, stores. We had everything we wanted on the west side. It was really a fun time. It kind of, if you look at Harlem Nights, if you see that movie, it gives you kind of a understanding of how life looked like down there at that time.
World War II would bring even more opportunity and industry to the city, generating an economic boom for Dayton's Black workers that lasted for the next 3 decades.
People was purchasing homes, people were buying cars, people were moving, people were doing all kinds of things based on the fact that they had the opportunities to get work.
But as in many other Rust Belt towns, the good times eventually came to an end.
When GM decided to move plants to Mexico, it changed the entire dynamic, of the region. And then you have the people who can't make their mortgage and foreclose on their house, and then you have empty houses in these neighborhoods. And the more empty houses you have, the more, you have a criminal element.
And that was starting the decline of Dayton.
Dayton's west side fell into disrepair, and the interstate system created even more problems.
You have 2 major arteries, Interstate 75 and Interstate 70 passing through. There's a lot of drugs that come through that way.
In the 80s and 90s, the crack cocaine epidemic had devastating results on the community.
Crack literally broke the backs of our women in our community. It destroyed our men. We start seeing more guys about to go to prison, more guys going to the jail, more guys homeless that wasn't even taking care of their children. You start seeing during that time, single family households had to be about 60% in Dayton, Ohio. So them young men back then, them young women, where they gonna go? And I'm thinking about it, you got me even thinking, it was like, oh my God, we were not on the incline then, we were on a decline.
When mass incarceration starts to pick up, then you have a lot of kids in a single family households because of their, family member being in jail or something like this.
Some of these kids did not have anyone that cared for them. So they looked to each other as family because they didn't have parents at home that cared. We had empty streets downtown, shop owners that were having a hard time keeping it going and staying afloat. So it was a strange time, the early 90s, a time of struggle in downtown Dayton for sure.
By Christmas of 1992, community leaders were making efforts to revive Dayton in hopes of getting the city back on track.
They were trying to get people from the suburbs and outlying cities to come to Dayton over the holidays and enjoy the arcade, enjoy the holiday decorations downtown. There was a big Christmas tree in Courthouse Square.
As excited revelers gathered downtown to celebrate the city's resurgence, no one could have predicted the level of violence that was about to descend upon the entire city. Around 10 p.m. on Christmas Eve, Dayton police respond to a shooting on Neal Avenue in Dayton's northwest side. They find a teenage girl shot to death in an apparent robbery.
The victim was laying on the sidewalk outside of the phone booth. One of the things that stood out was it was cold, and she had no coat and she had no shoes. We figured she had walked there. There were no vehicles there, and figured she lived somewhere nearby or was coming from somewhere nearby. But you would not, even if you were close, go out in this weather without a coat, and you certainly would not go out without shoes. We figured it's probably a pair of high-dollar tennis shoes or something like that, because we've had people robbed for less.
When you look at homicide as a detective, you walk into something and you start processing it immediately. What do I have here? What is this? Is this domestic violence? Is this a drug deal? And I think that when they were looking at that, it didn't add up.
There were youth issues in Dayton. There was a lot of kids downtown skipping school. There were gangs operating, dealing drugs. A lot of us wondered whether it was a gang initiation.
The victim is identified as 18-year-old West Dayton resident Danita Gillette.
Danita Danielle Gillette is my youngest sister. And when my mother got pregnant with my sister, I was so thrilled. And as soon as she was born, I took her everywhere with me. She was a daredevil. So she was always riding her bike, doing the wheelies. She had no fear. I was a big sister. I loved to tease my baby sister. She hated that. And I was like, well, tell me more about these boys. And she was like, no, so she would go away. She looked at me more as a mother figure, as a mini mom. So of course she didn't want to talk to me about boys. She didn't want to talk to me about developing. A funny thing happened one time. I was talking to my mom, and my sister came out of the bathroom with a towel on, and I made a comment like, "Whew, you're developing." Why did I say that? She ran to the bedroom and basically was hiding. I embarrassed her. So, but I was used to doing that. She knew I would do that. I just was teasing. But I loved my sister. My sister was so funny like that. She would get so tickled.
Danita welcomed a daughter into the world in 1990. Although she was still a senior in high school, Danita was determined to be both a mom and a graduate.
Danita was an amazing mom. And people talk about it all the time. Even being at the young age that she is, she started putting things in place. While she was at work, my mother had my niece. And then on the weekends, I had her every weekend. So we had her covered for her to be able to do that. And then in between all of that, when she got off of work, of course, she was loving on her baby. It's really hard to be a working mom, going to school, and taking care of a little one too. So what we tried to do is help during the day while she was already occupied. And then after those hours, she loved on her daughter. She was always eager to see her daughter. Her plan was, I'm not going to just finish high school, I'm going to college. And so when I saw the paper that said she was accepted to St. Clair Community College, I was like, oh my goodness, made me even more proud.
But now Danita's young life has been cut short, and detectives begin to build a timeline of her day. On Christmas Eve morning, Danita left for her job on Dayton's Northwest Side. She was excited about rejoining her family for Christmas Eve dinner later that night.
My sister loved Christmas. Oh my goodness, she loved Christmas. Christmas was her favorite time of the year. She loved being around the family, just like me.
But as the night grew long, there was no sign of Danita. Worry turned to fear. And then came the news no one expected to hear, especially on this particular night.
Making a death notification is always difficult, and certainly Christmas Eve does not make it any better.
I started screaming, I started crying. I ran out the back door and I just started pleading with the Lord. I said, please God, something is wrong, fix it, please.
Back on Neal Avenue, detectives start knocking on doors, looking for any possible leads. Instead, they're met with an eerie and deafening silence.
We always do a neighborhood canvass, Christmas Eve or not. The problem was Everything's shut down. It's wintertime, and it's cold. Everybody has their doors and windows shut, and nothing came up that was helpful.
The empty streets had allowed the killer or killers to vanish into the night just as quickly as they had appeared.
There's 7 spent shell casings, but they're all the same caliber, so we're assuming all from the same gun. There's really no way to tell. Obviously, there's one person there, but are there 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? There's no way of telling at that point.
The frightening answer to that question will soon come back to haunt detectives and will leave the entire city of Dayton fearing who's next.
I do not believe that robbery was the motive. I think killing was the motive.
They were not going to stop. There were going to be more and more people dying, and it could be anyone.
Dayton police are investigating the brutal murder of 18-year-old Danita Gillette, who was shot on Christmas Eve.
Obviously, we wanted to know, did Danita have
Of why Danita was killed is baffling enough to detectives, but how she was killed raises even more questions.
The thing that was odd at this scene was that there was a strange form of ammunition, Blazer, a .25 caliber, and it was something that was used on shooting ranges for practice.
Not the kind of ammunition that you'd see normally in like a gang shooting or a robbery.
It was fairly new at the time. It's just cheap range ammunition. And that, of course, that was our biggest clue, to be honest with you, at that time, was we had something that was unusual.
As Dayton wakes to what should be the joyous sounds of Christmas morning, reports of Danita's vicious murder bring a hush over the city.
People were afraid. I mean, they really were. It was so random.
Little did they know, Christmas in Dayton was about to get even more frightening. Just hours after Danita was gunned down, detectives respond to yet another murder. This time, it's a 19-year-old male named Richmond Maddox. He's been executed in the driver's seat of his car.
When you get to the scene, again, it's winter. The windows are all up. He's not shot through an open window or anything. And by the blood spatter, we can tell that there was somebody in the passenger seat. Blood, when it moves, it's not rocket science. It's just like spraying a Windex bottle. If there's something in the path, you're going to see an absence in the pattern on the window glass. And there was an absence in the pattern, so the person that shot Richmond was inside the car at the time. One of the things that we had at this scene that we lacked at Danita's scene was we had a witness. He didn't know what was going on, didn't know motive or anything, obviously, but what he did know was heard a shot and saw a black female jump from the moving car. And it was moving, he said, probably doing 15, 20 miles an hour. That's pretty gutsy to jump out of a moving car like that.
Who shoots somebody while they're driving them somewhere? Someone shot this person and jumped out of the car while it was still moving. So you had two situations that made no sense.
I'm thinking same general area. It's a shooting. We're gonna find the .25 caliber ammunition there, but we didn't. And our evidence crews go through the car with a fine-tooth comb.
In fact, investigators don't find any ammunition at all.
That not only means that he wasn't shot with that .25 automatic, it means he was probably shot with a revolver or a Derringer because they retained the casing.
And they're actually relieved because now they've got two random things that don't make sense. But they look and go, different ammunition, might be different people. Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Like Danita, Richmond doesn't seem to have any enemies that might want him dead.
He had a few run-ins here and there, but nothing major. Really nothing that would say, oh, let's go this direction. He has a drug history. He has this. It wasn't anything like that. There was a possibility that crossed our mind, maybe he knows his assailant, only because they're in the car. I mean, he had to let them in the car. I mean, if somebody came up with your windows rolled up and said, hey, let me in your car, I'll shoot you, drive away.
I think what lingered with them was that This is another weird one. It's not exactly the same thing, but why was this guy shot?
Now, just hours after Danita's murder, word of Richmond's execution descends upon Dayton as well. They are the first of what's to become known as the Christmas killings.
You know what made this to me really blow up? It was Christmas killing. I think once they tagged it Christmas, and Christmas is supposed to be one of the most joyful times of our life, it blew up.
But it's a third shooting just 24 hours later, the day after Christmas, that sends the city into a full-scale panic.
We're working these two cases, Danita and Richmond, and doing what we can when we get a call on a multiple shooting at a little mom and pop carryout on West 5th Street.
That's when things really changed.
Detectives are now faced with a killing spree, and the clock is ticking before it happens again.
It was nothing like we had ever seen before. We had seen multiple homicides. We had seen serial murder, but spree killing is a different thing. And the randomness of that is the most frightening thing. And I believe it's what was very hard for detectives to link and investigate these crimes because they were so random. None of the victims knew one another. They were all killed in different places. I think the more they saw the police working, the more they saw the news media reporting what they had done, the bolder they became, the more excited they became.
We were scared to death here in Dayton, Ohio.
We knew this is going to continue until we stop it. They're not going to quit. Why would they quit?
When detectives respond to the city's third shooting in just over 36 hours, Dayton becomes a city under siege.
We got a woman murdered who's at a phone booth. We got a guy murdered who's in his car. We've got a little store owner murdered that did nothing. So, yeah, the citizens are frightened, and rightfully so.
You just didn't know what was going to happen. You didn't know.
Police in Dayton, Ohio are investigating two brutal murders within hours of each other. Now, they've been called to the scene of a third shooting, this time at a West Side Mini Mart.
We get a call on a multiple shooting at a little mom and pop carryout on West 5th Street. And so we respond to there. And Sarah Abraham was 38 years old. She was the owner and proprietor of the little mom and pop store. She was alive at the time, but not expected to survive. And she did die 5 days later in the hospital, never regained consciousness. There were two other patrons in the business at the time. One of them had been shot as well, but lived. The other played dead and was unharmed.
The second gunshot victim is 71-year-old Jimmy Thompson. He tells detectives that he'd stopped by the store to visit Sarah when a young woman came inside.
There was conversation between the young woman and Sarah Abraham, and something was purchased, but she did not have enough money. So a gentleman who was in the store had offered to give her whatever she needed to pay for the item.
She undoubtedly was casing the place. Bought something that didn't cost much. She was a nickel short. One of the guys gave her a nickel. As she's going out, two black males come in, and they're both armed. In an instant, the robbery occurs, and they demand money from Sarah, who had a little, this is not Kroger's, she had a little over $30 in the register, and gladly gave it up.
They get the money, and then they just shoot at everybody. The guy who gave her the nickel was in his 70s, and he fell to the ground and pretended he was hit. He was not hit.
And they could strike again at any time. Fear spread throughout the city like a wildfire.
The community was scared to death. There was fear at homes, there was fear in school, there was fear at church. I mean, we was trying to shut it down, but kids were still coming out being kids. Some kids like, well, you know, I'm from this community, and we trying to convince them, y'all need to go in the house. You see anything strange, say something. Fear. You know, they say fear is false evidence appearing real, but this fear right here was real. This wasn't a false evidence appearing real. No. This was real fear. But some of us was still in the center of it. Some of us had to trust the police that we thought put fear in our communities all the time, but we had to trust them to find out who this person is, catch these people that's doing this.
I was scared to death that somebody would break in and hurt me and kill me in my home.
The fear in the community, it was obvious that the Dayton police felt a lot of pressure to get this solved as quickly as possible and get whoever were doing this.
We're calling records saying, come up with anybody that's been shot at in the last, 48 hours, anybody that's been robbed, any stolen cars, things like that.
And it turned out that the same day that Danita Golette was killed, there were other events involving people who were shot at but were not hit.
We have another lady who was out in the county. She was getting air in her tires, and they came up armed, 2 black males, again armed, and shot at her, trying to kill her, even though she's running from her car, and they took her car. It was a Dodge Shadow, and we had the registration. Now we had a car to look for, and we immediately got that information out to our uniformed officers.
The question is whether investigators will be able to find them before they strike again.
This didn't all happen on the same city block. It happened scattered throughout Northwest Dayton. So there was a large area to cover. That's a lot of people who are potential next victims, like probably tens of thousands of people thinking, like, am I going to be next?
This fear right here was real because nobody knew. Purge is the movie. That's what it felt like, a purge. That's what it felt like, because you never knew what was going to happen.
A string of murders over the 1992 Christmas holidays has the police and residents of Dayton, Ohio on high alert.
These people were killing because they could. And what was scary was they were getting away with it. And police knew they had to get a handle on this or this would just keep going and going and going. It was frightening.
The media has their job to do, but it certainly didn't help us. I mean, it's all out panic. Every news story, every newspaper, every, breaking news, there's another murder.
But we felt an obligation, me and about 15 other guys, okay, we gotta let people know, don't be out at night. If you see a car, don't walk up to the car. Don't run in the woods if somebody chasing you. We were scared to death in this city.
Investigators have connected the shootings to a group of 3 suspects, but they don't have much more than that to go on.
We're getting some descriptions, but we don't have any real identifiers. Nobody has a tattoo on their head or their face or anything like that. It's your 2 black males and a black female and general sizes, complexion, stuff like that, which limits it to about 100,000 people, unfortunately.
They release information about the shooters and their stolen vehicle to the media, hoping someone will recognize them. Within hours, they receive a call from 17-year-old Nicholas Woodson.
The individual just called 911, said he needed to talk to somebody right away. He'd be at the phone booth at the corner of wherever street he was at. We went and got him, and he started naming names and what was going on. And then that's just the floodgates open.
Woodson tells police the spree killers are all members of a group of teens known as the Downtown Posse.
He was kind of the periphery of the group, but he was with the group and knew what was going on. Marvellis Keene is a leader. His girlfriend, Laura Taylor, is one of the recruiters that would go around and tell people, come on, join up with us.
According to Woodson, the 2 convenience store gunmen were 19-year-old Marvellis Keene and DeMarcus Smith. A 4th member, 20-year-old Heather Matthews, was also there. Prior to that shooting, however, Woodson says the group showed him the body of another victim.
Did they tell you what you were going to do when you got to that house? Did they already told you there's a man there dead? Okay, what happened when you got inside?
So I went in there, and I saw this dead guy was laying on the bed. I was like, nah, take me home. So they was eating stuff. I was like, you know, they thought it was funny.
Woodson says 2 other people were in the house as well, 16-year-old Wendy Cottrell and 18-year-old Marvin Washington. But the posse decided they were snitches and asked Woodson to help kill them. He says that's when he decided to come to the police.
He was terrified since he wasn't involved in everything, hands-on, that he was going to be killed. So he decided to call us and get some protection and give us the information.
Woodson tells detectives that the group's current hideout is a home on Dayton's west side.
Obviously, we get information out to our uniform crews. Here's the house on Kumler. This is where they frequent, you know, so be out there and be looking and be careful.
One of the patrol officers, Lieutenant John Huber, is in the vicinity and spots the black Dodge Shadow.
Lieutenant Huber actually saw people entering the car and knew the car was occupied. Basically, every crew in the city is being directed to where he's going to try to stop this car. And we're headed that way too. I mean, everybody's going that way because this had potential to be like Bonnie and Clyde. You know, they're going to go out with a blaze of glory.
Fortunately for everyone in Dayton, the crew is taken down without incident. All 4 suspects, Keene, Taylor, Matthews, and Smith, are arrested and taken into custody. Investigators realize the plates on the carjacked Dodge Shadow have been stolen from yet another victim, 34-year-old Joseph Wilkerson.
My partner and I go out to check that residence. Immediately we know what we've got because once you smell a decomposing body, it's you know the odor. And we find Joseph Wilkerson. He had been shot twice, once in the chest, once in the head. He was tied to his bedpost, spread eagle. The house had been ransacked.
Wilkerson is the same victim Nicholas Woodson had described to police during his interview.
And he's obviously dead, but, you know, we start peeling layers away because you never know what evidence you're going to find. We did find the .25 caliber shell casing. It's one of those where you call your partners on the phone who are doing the interviews and say, let me tell you something, we've got another one.
Murder is an unfortunate reality in every city in the United States, but a group of teenagers on a Christmas murder spree is difficult to comprehend.
What's stupid about it is the things they got from my sister and the other individuals that were involved in this killing spree. If they had just worked a job for 1 month, they would have had more money in their pocket than they received by killing these individuals and just robbing them. It wasn't just my sister. My sister was one of the young people that was killed during that week, but the 4 that was involved, they lost their life too. Their life was ruined.
After 3 days and a string of murders, the downtown posse is in police custody. Investigators begin their questioning with the group's youngest member, 15-year-old Laura Taylor.
Laura Taylor had been in the junior ROTC. Her parents were working people who were not in trouble themselves. And then she hooked up with Marvalis Keene, and they later told police that they could no longer control her once she was with Marvalis.
When you have a lengthy interview, we're always compelled to make sure that they're comfortable. So I said, do you need to use the restroom? She stands up, never says a word, urinates on the floor, sits back down. Yeah, we're done. I know there's nothing we could say or do at that point.
The other members of the posse turn out to be more cooperative.
Marvalis Keene was a small-time criminal, in and out of trouble constantly, estranged from his family.
Keene's early life, however, had started much differently.
He ended up bouncing from his grandmother's home to his father, and then he was kicked out.
Now homeless, Keene wound up at a flop house across the river. His girlfriend, Laura Taylor, soon joined him.
It's been said that he was the muscle and she was the brains.
Heather Matthews, a friend of Laura Taylor, she brought her on board, or DeMarcus Smith. Again, small-time criminal, in and out of problems. Nothing major that I remember, but Keene knew him. Wendy Cottrell and Marvin Washington, who were not present for the homicides, kind of came in later and joined the family or group, whatever you want to call it. Every one of them was estranged from their families, and this was a family per se. And Marvellis was the king, and Laura was the queen, and everybody else was along for the ride.
It doesn't take the family long to turn on Taylor. According to them, the shootings were her idea.
Prior to the Christmas holiday, I believe it was the night before, Laura told the group that she wanted to get some drama in their lives. It was shocking that a 15-year-old girl was involved, and it was shocking to us that she appeared to be the ringleader and that it was her idea to create some drama. It was shocking to us and to the community.
Keene says they settled on a plan to rob Joseph Wilkerson, a man Taylor already knew.
Laura Taylor had been to his house before, and she said, I got a guy, he works at one of the GM plants, he's probably got some money. I'll take Heather, and we'll say he'll be in for an orgy. And he was. He answered the door and let him in. They, of course, leave it unlocked, and then Marvellis comes in.
You had the girls tie him up? Mm-hmm. Okay, what happened then?
Danita Gillette later that evening at the phone booth, and Keene decided to rob her.
She got no money. Then we would take off her shoes and that flannel, like that. So she took it off. Then we, I thought we'd be about to leave, and dude was like, Merry Christmas, bitch. Pow, pow, pow. Now I saw one time, like, pow.
Matthews says Taylor then came up with a plan to rob her ex-boyfriend, Richmond Maddox. When he resisted, Laura ended up killing him instead.
She jumped out the car, and the car ran into a tree, so she started running. And I thought he had pushed her out. The way it looked to me, he had pushed her out the car.
Okay.
Then when we went down, we picked her up, and she was like, she was like, I shot him in the head, I shot him in the head. She had blood all over him.
The drama continued on the 26th when Keene and Smith stole the Dodge Shadow from a gas station and used it to rob the Mini Mart.
Was there discussion about going in and robbing the store?
Yes, there was.
Okay, tell me what that discussion was about. How did it decide to be done?
But they was going to have Lauren go in first and act like she buying something.
Laura go in first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then they was going to walk in and look around and ask for something. Then they was going to rob them and take their money.
Keene had other plans, however.
How much she give you?
It was $41 bills.
$41 bill. You had a gun pointed at her?
Yeah.
Okay. Did she resist in any way, or she just give you the money?
She just gave me the money.
How many times did you shoot her?
2 times, I think.
Where'd you shoot her?
Her face.
But the thing that I think shocks most average people is, of the ones who confess, it was matter of fact. We did this, and then we did that. It's just like me sitting here talking to you.
Between the group's statements and the evidence collected so far, police have enough to charge them all with multiple counts of murder. The city of Dayton can finally breathe a sigh of relief. Or can they?
I get a call from Reverend Head, Bill Head. He was a minister in the west side of Dayton. He's like, Doyle, you're not going to believe this. He goes, Laura Taylor, I went over here to minister to her in the juvenile detention facility. He goes, she told me where 2 more bodies are.
Dayton, Ohio is left reeling after the worst murder spree in the city's history. But even more shocking than the crimes are the identities of the killers.
I think that people living in the area where these crimes occurred were very relieved that these people were in custody. But I also think they were very shocked at the ages of the suspects, especially Laura, being so young.
It's the ages and the mindsets of the suspects. It's hard to wrap your head around. These are primarily kids.
According to Taylor, there are still 2 more victims police haven't found. Fringe Posse members Wendy Cottrell and Marvin Washington.
Wendy and Marvin were boyfriend-girlfriend. Marvin was a black male, Wendy was a white female. And by virtue of that, each one of them knew someone else in the group. It was another good pickup, per se, for them. They could add more people. Another girl they could use to maybe try to entice some of these guys to be robbery victims unknowingly. But they came in late. At the end of the day, they were not going to be on board with this. Like everybody else was just, bragging about it. So Marvell's decided they had to be eliminated.
Their bodies have been left at a gravel pit outside of town.
Did Wendy and Marvin know at that time? Were they scared? Did they know what was going to happen to them?
We walked them around behind one of the dirt piles. Then Maurice shot Marvin, and I shot Wendy.
I think of all the scenes, Wendy Cottrell and Marvin Washington, that was probably the eeriest, saddest scene, just because you got 2 kids basically been shot for no reason. You're physically and mentally exhausted from working this case anyway. And you just stand there and you're just like, does this ever end?
Although Taylor is only 15, state prosecutors decide to try all 4 members of the downtown posse as adults.
In Ohio, if you're 15 or older, for certain circumstances, you can be tried as an adult.
Heather was already 18, but see, she was willing to testify. She was willing to tell the truth and testify against the others.
In January of 1993, a grand jury indicts Keene on multiple counts, including capital murder.
Marvellus Keene was an adult. That made this a capital case. Aggravated murder is the only crime in Ohio that carries the death penalty, and certainly this was worthy of the death penalty.
Keene is ultimately convicted on 20 counts.
Marvellus Keene was sentenced to death, and July 21st of 2009, he was put to death by lethal injection.
When Marvellus Keene was going to be executed, they asked him if he wanted to make a last statement, and what he said was, "I have no words." And there are no words. There are no words for this. I mean, it's just that horrible.
In January of 1994, the rest of the crew are convicted as well. Laura Taylor, Heather Matthews, and DeMarcus Smith all receive life sentences. It's been decades since the Christmas spree killings, but the city of Dayton still remembers.
How many Christmases was spoiled because of this? Can you imagine you being a young person, you're expecting a gift, and the gift you get is somebody out here killing other people? That's your gift. Your gift is right now, you can't go outside on Christmas. You can't enjoy it because we got young people killing young people.
You had a group of kids who met and hooked up who had no direction. They were not in school. They were not working. They had no transportation. They had no money. I think the group of them together became like a perfect storm.
Others have been resilient and have risen above all the circumstances. You can do it too. And you don't have to go out and kill nobody to do it.
We each as individuals have a responsibility to make it better so that don't never happen again. What happened in 1992.
its sun-soaked beaches, legendary food, and electric nightlife, the city attracts tourists from all over the world. It's also one of the most influential sports towns in America. Whether it's the Marlins, Dolphins, Hurricanes, or Heat, Miami's love for its hometown teams and its athletes runs deep. And in 2007, when one of the city's hometown sports heroes is gunned down while defending his young family from a group of brazen killers, a single bullet has devastating consequences for all of Miami. In the late 19th century, the city of Miami sprang up along Florida's East Coast seemingly overnight. Its sudden rise to prominence earned it the nickname Magic City. Since then, it has grown from a tourist destination into one of the most culturally diverse and endearing cities in America.
Everyone wants to live in Miami for the music, the culture, the food, the beaches.
There's over 120 languages that you can find here in Miami. There's a uniqueness within each neighborhood that you go to.
Residents from Latin America, Africa, and the Caribbean make up over half of Miami's population, creating an energetic atmosphere unlike any other.
We have different pockets of where you have concentrated populations of color. You'll have Little Haiti, then you may have Cayocho, Little Havana, where you'll find the Cuban population. And then you'll have the pockets where the black people may live, Brownsville, Liberty City, Overtown, Carol City. And I think that's what makes Miami so special, is that you can experience all different cultures in one location.
No matter where you come from or which neighborhood you call home, most Miamians will agree on one thing. Their shared love of sports brings everyone in the city together.
To be able to go and see the university play, it's amazing to kind of feel that spirit and to see how everybody, they get angry together. They're going to yell together, high five each other once that touchdown is made.
When you're sitting in the stadium rooting for the University of Miami, it doesn't matter where you were originally from or what nationality, or if you're from South America, Central America, from Europe, you're all rooting for the same team, and it brings everybody together, and that's one of the beauties of sports.
But in the winter of 2007, a single bullet would send shockwaves throughout Miami's close-knit fan base, and it would leave a beloved hometown sports hero fighting for his life. Just before 2 a.m. on November 26, 2007, Miami-Dade detective Juan Segovia gets called out to an attempted murder scene.
That morning, I was actually sleeping. My team was on call that night, and I was dead asleep when my phone went off. And the detective that called me, he goes, "Oh man, you got a big one." He goes, "Sean Taylor was shot. He's critical. He's being transported. So, good luck." It took me like a full 3 seconds to register the name Sean Taylor, and I thought to myself, Sean Taylor, the football player.
Although NFL star safety Sean Taylor played for the Washington Redskins, he was a Florida native and maintained a home in the upscale Miami enclave of Palmetto Bay.
It's not a place where violence happens, so it really was sort of a mystery and a shock when this happened.
I remember pulling up a couple blocks away, and as I'm approaching the house, I could see in the distance a lot of lights. And as I got closer, it was just a sea of media on scene already.
Detective Segovia learns that Sean was shot during an apparent home invasion. First responders had found Sean just inside his bedroom, bleeding profusely from a gunshot wound to his leg. He'd been taken via helicopter to a nearby trauma center.
Anybody who's done this job for a little while knows the amount of blood signifies arterial bleeding, so I knew it was serious.
Sean's girlfriend, Jackie Garcia, and the couple's 18-month-old daughter are still on the scene, but both are seemingly unharmed. Even though Jackie was in the home at the time of the shooting and was the person who called 911, Detective Segovia holds off on speaking to her for now, even though she's likely his best witness.
You're dealing with someone who now knows their loved one is in critical condition. Their mind is completely somewhere else. You know, she's worried about the health of Sean Taylor, not so much the health of my investigation. So I don't want to push too much.
As Juan and his team begin to develop a game plan for their high-profile case, word gets back that, just as they had suspected, a bullet has torn through Sean's right femoral artery, and his condition is extremely dire.
It's usually not a good outcome for the victim. And I knew that Sean had a very tough fight ahead to stay alive.
Sean Taylor was born on April 1st, 1983, and spent most of his childhood growing up in nearby Homestead, Florida.
Sean was very active. He always liked to catch lizards, play in the yard, play street football, go fishing. He kept busy all the time.
I noticed his energy at a young age. You know, typical kid, but there was something different about him. You could actually see where he was really intense and focused and very, very competitive.
After his parents divorced, Sean went to live with his father in Miami's Overtown neighborhood. His career in football began soon after that.
My memory of him is just that, him being the fireball, running around beyond everybody else. I called him Mr. Bamalam because every time he came to the play and he gets to the play, it's done. Bamalam.
He played for the South Dade Rams. And it's funny because there's a lot of guys in the stands that would be betting on kids, and they would be betting that Sean was going to knock somebody out or he's going to score a touchdown.
Sean's family threw their full support behind their budding star.
At first, I couldn't watch him play and do those hits. I would be afraid he's gonna get hurt. But as time went on, I started enjoying it and getting into it.
By the time Sean graduated high school, colleges across the nation were lining up to sign him. But he chose to stay in Miami, and the city loved him for it.
To see the love that he got from the fans, to see how he responded, it's kind of like he knew when you stay home and you play for the University of Miami, you have the city on your back.
After 3 successful years with the Hurricanes, Sean set his sights on the NFL. And in 2004, his hard work paid off when he was drafted in the first round by Washington. Sean and his family were elated.
Everybody was hugging and, you know, it was a big celebration. The way he smiled, it was like, yeah, I did it, you know. This is just the start of something, you know, special.
Sean signed a 6-year, $18 million contract that changed his life and the lives of everyone in his family.
He wanted to change some people's lives that were close to him, his mom especially. When you see your mom working a lot and you know that they're making a sacrifice for you, I know for a fact that that was what really drove him.
2 years later, in 2006, Sean had even more to celebrate when he and his girlfriend, Jackie, welcomed their first child into the world.
That changed his life because now it was my number one priority is my child. I saw him take it very seriously.
That love that you're getting from a child is unconditional, and it makes you into a better person. It changes you, your thought process, your movement. It did everything for him. It's nothing like that. He definitely enjoyed it.
But now Sean is clinging to life, and the news of his shooting spreads through his family like a wildfire.
I was walking in my hallway, just walking back and forth. I couldn't sleep for some reason. And that's when I got the call, and his dad told me what had happened, that he was shot. I don't even remember anything after that.
I was at the Hard Rock Casino, and I was playing poker. Don't know how much money I had, but I got the call that he got shot. And I just walked out the building and got in my car and just drove.
While investigators at the scene try and piece together what happened to Sean, his loved ones descend upon the hospital, hoping for some good news. His prognosis, however, remained grim.
He was bleeding profusely, like every time the blood, he would go out there, try to put the blood back in. Even thinking about it was horrible.
I think being a world-class athlete will help in certain situations, but a lot of things would have to go right. And
TV One has a new show just for you.
Fatal Attraction Last Words is taking things to the next level
by diving deeper into some of the most explosive Fatal Attraction episodes
you want to know more about.
New interviews, fresh footage, updates on the victims and their families.
It's on some
As doctors desperately fight to save the life of NFL star Sean Taylor, investigators begin searching his Miami home for clues to explain what happened to him that night.
We start doing an assessment of the residence from the outside, and we very quickly determined that there had been forced entry into the residence from the rear of the house. You could see wood shavings and wood debris on the ground, and when you see the door itself, it was very easy to determine that someone had just pried that door open with some sort of metal object.
Detectives carefully work their way through Sean's home. For the most part, nothing seems to be out of place.
That immediate area appears to be undisturbed. Nothing that stood out to us, nothing that was alarming.
That all changes as they approach Sean's master bedroom.
There's a little hallway, and you can already see blood on the ground.
In addition to the large amount of blood outside Sean's bedroom, detectives also find some damage to the bedroom door.
We could immediately see on scene a faint outline of a shoe against that door. So I knew the confrontation had occurred there. I knew that it was probably something very quick. Not a lot of physical involvement, and he had been shot and he had collapsed right there on the same spot. There wasn't any blood splatter that I could see. There weren't any signs of a fight.
Detectives also find a single 9mm shell casing outside Sean's bedroom.
There's scenes that you get to there you have absolutely nothing. So the fact that you can locate a casing is a positive.
While CSIs continue processing the scene, Detective Segovia turns his attention to Sean's girlfriend, Jackie Garcia.
Because she was in the house at the time it happened. She was gonna be able to tell us at least a story that would explain some things to us. So getting to her was of utmost importance.
Through her shock, fear, and pain, Jackie tells detectives that she and Sean were asleep with their 18-month-old daughter when she was awakened by the sound of someone breaking in.
She immediately called out to Sean and woke him up and told him, I heard something in the house. At that moment, Sean Taylor reached behind the headboard of the bed and pulled out a machete that he had back there for protection and begins to walk around the bed.
And then next thing you know, door gets kicked open, a shot rings out, and then it's just all pandemonium. Jackie's crying, she's terrified.
The next thing she remembers is grabbing a cell phone and calling 911. She remained in the bedroom until uniformed officers arrived. Ms. Garcia, unfortunately, never saw anybody.
It really was like something out of like a mystery thriller kind of Hollywood plot.
Detectives have no reason to doubt Jackie's story, and she's ruled out as having any involvement from the beginning.
His fiance was of utmost importance and was extremely helpful because she was able to tell us exactly what happened the moment he got shot and everything that led up to that.
Detectives believe a broken sliding glass door was the shooter's likely exit.
The sliding glass door was completely shattered. The majority of the glass was on the outside, on the patio area, indicating to me that it had been broken from the inside going out.
Detectives locate security cameras in Sean's house, but unfortunately, they weren't actually connected at the time. It's a definite blow to the investigation.
Kind of like that Rocky saying, you know, life is about getting hit and continue moving forward. That's kind of what it's like as an investigator. Every time you get knocked down, you just get back up and you move on to the next thing.
A canvas of Sean's neighborhood doesn't provide many more details either.
The houses are not on top of each other. Most of the property lines are divided either by a big fence or walls, and nobody heard anything. So we were never able to gather anything pertinent to the case from our area canvas.
Throughout the night and into the morning, police continue their investigation, while Sean's loved ones continue to pray for his recovery.
He ended up landing in probably the best trauma hospital in the world at Jackson Memorial Writer Trauma Center, and they were able to repair the artery, but I knew that it was a long shot.
On November 27th, Sean's valiant fight for his life comes to a devastating end.
Sean lost so much blood, he went into a coma, and then from the coma, he passed away. So just innocently being home and protecting his family from an injury cost him his life.
It hit us hard. I'll never forget one of the doctors saying that he had never seen someone fight so hard to stay alive, and that always touched me.
It was heartaching, believe me. It crushed me. Yep, I'm not gonna lie.
This really was a maddening case because it literally is just a fraction of a millimeter left or right, and Sean Taylor might have survived.
Sean's death is now a homicide, and it only adds to the pressure for detectives to find some answers, and fast.
I understood the implications of what it meant to have someone like that being shot. I knew there was gonna be a lot of pressure.
It really was a mystery because all we knew was that somebody had gone into the home and shot Sean. I think everybody's suspicion was that it was not random. I think everyone assumed, no, this was someone that knew Sean Taylor who came there for nefarious reasons, whether it was a burglary or whether it was just to kill him outright. I've covered a lot of random break-ins that end up in tragedies, and this one didn't have the hallmarks of that.
Following the death of NFL star Sean Taylor, detectives begin to doubt that his murder was a random crime.
This wasn't something where a random drug addict just broke in and suddenly decided to kill whoever the person was, and oh, it happened to be a football star. One of the more telling details about the break-in was the house wasn't ransacked. It almost seemed like whoever went in there knew exactly what they were looking for.
But according to Sean's loved ones, he had no known enemies, and he didn't live a lifestyle that would have brought danger into his life.
Especially at that stage in his life, he had a young baby and his girlfriend, his high school sweetheart. He wasn't someone that was known to be out, at South Beach at all hours of the night.
But detectives are made aware of one particular incident prior to his daughter's birth that does get their undivided attention.
Sean Taylor had an incident a couple years earlier where his ATVs had been stolen. Unfortunately, Sean, being a young guy and wanted to take care of things himself without getting the police involved, he was able to locate his ATVs. He found out who had them.
And he had gone and confronted them and brandished a weapon at them, and so he ended up getting arrested for a weapons charge.
Sean never had to do any prison time or anything, but that was one of the first things we had to consider and eliminate. Was it a group of guys involved in that came back to get revenge?
I thought it might have been somebody from the local guys that he might have had some words with, because the guys who were involved in that were some real serious guys.
But as detectives dig through the old case files, they determined that none of the men involved in the prior incident were anywhere near Palmetto Bay on the night of Sean's murder.
Some of the players involved were incarcerated at the time. One had moved out of town, and we verified he was out of town, and the other one we couldn't tie in to any phone records. So we were able to quickly eliminate that as being one of the reasons why Sean Taylor was killed.
But if Sean wasn't the intended target, maybe his house was. Detectives learn a shocking new detail that gives credit to the theory.
Sean Taylor was not really supposed to be.
Detectives learned that Sean's younger brother and sister were allowed to stay at the house anytime he was in Washington. They're brought in for questioning and reveal another shocking detail.
We found out about a November 18th burglary at the same residence. Nobody was home at the time.
An intruder had attempted to break into the house just 2 weeks prior to Sean's murder. Sean's siblings weren't there at the time, and Sean was in Washington. His brother and sister had filed a report, but since nothing was taken, the case never went any further. That is, until now.
That makes you think, hey, this is a pattern. Maybe this house is being targeted and being targeted for a reason.
Detective Segovia believes the perpetrator may be someone known to Sean and his family. someone familiar with Sean's movements and the living situation at his house. In other words, an inside job. Sean's siblings tell detectives about several parties and barbecues they had thrown at Sean's house over the last few months. The guest list typically consisted of just a handful of people.
It was, well, who attends those barbecues? Who else knows this house belongs to Sean Taylor?
Sean's siblings provide a list of names and numbers to the detectives.
I can't emphasize how important they were, especially when you have nothing to go on initially in a case, or you don't know what's relevant in the investigation.
Armed with a list of names, detectives look at every cell number that bounced off the closest tower to Sean's house at the time of the murder, hoping to find any matches.
We knew exactly within a minute when Sean Taylor was shot, so we were able to request numbers from his home tower for a very specific amount of time. So you think 3, 4 in the morning, only 4 people are talking on the phone. That's not the way it works. It's millions of phones. It's overwhelming.
Detectives study the numbers for hours before a pattern finally begins to emerge.
We see a couple of area code 239s pinging off the tower, and we're talking about a minute of when Sean Taylor was shot inside his residence.
Well, 239 area code is for the west coast of Florida, Fort Myers.
Through the interviews with the sister and the brother, we had learned that they had connections, friends, and other acquaintances from the Fort Myers area.
As they cross-reference the numbers and the list of names, detectives get a promising hit.
The first name that came through was Jason Scott Mitchell, who ended up being somebody that was mentioned by Sean Taylor's family as being a frequent visitor to the residence.
He was someone that had been in the house. He's around enough that maybe he's someone that could have something to do with it.
It was like an energy thrust into all of us, because for the first time in the case, something's matching up. There's no coincidence that that person has been to that house before, and they happen to be hitting off the same exact tower of Sean Taylor at the time.
The investigation into the murder of NFL star Sean Taylor has just taken a dramatic turn. Detectives have identified their first viable suspect, a 19-year-old from Fort Myers named Jason Scott Mitchell.
Jason had this connection to the family. He would even do odd things around the house. He was someone cops could look at and say maybe he might have something to do with it because he knows where things are.
Not only does cell phone data confirm that Mitchell was near the crime scene at the time Sean was shot, but police also begin receiving tips that provide even more details and names.
We begin to get now new tips coming from the Fort Myers area about a group of young guys who were bragging about having been involved in the homicide of Sean Taylor. So now it's streamlining and it's solidifying the individuals that we need to talk to.
Investigators narrow the list of suspects down to 4 additional names: Eric Rivera, Timmy Brown, Venja Hunt, and Charles Wardlow.
Once we've identified these numbers and we begin to gather intelligence about these individuals, we knew they're all associated.
Agencies from across the state hit the streets from Miami to Fort Myers looking for any sign of the 5 suspects.
Not even an hour in, I was in the office and we immediately notified that Eric Rivera had been located and he was going to be interviewed.
On November 30th, detectives questioned 17-year-old Rivera.
It was a very gentle approach, and it wasn't even directly necessarily discussing a murder initially.
For the record, state your full name. Eric Rivera James. How old are you, sir? 17. And what did you date of birth? 449.
We got a lot of background information on him, who he lived with, kind of car he drove, what grade he was in, what his activities were, sports he liked playing. According to Rivera, he went to the movies that night with his girlfriend and his mom. I told him very quickly, it'll be very easy to verify. You know, we'll bring your girlfriend in, We'll bring your mom in. We'll interview people at the movie theater. All that stuff checks out. Then couldn't have been you. No problem. And I could tell that started weighing on him.
Rivera does his best to sidestep the questions until the interview takes an unexpected turn.
I remember seeing his eyes like just light up, and I saw him looking at something. And when I looked back, I see Jason Scott Mitchell's being walked into one of the other rooms, and he sees that.
It's a common tactic for police to kind of prime the pumps by letting one see the other, because then, oh man, they have him here too. I better be the first to the table to start confessing, right? Let me pin all the blame on that guy. And ultimately, Eric told the truth.
Rivera admits to taking part in the robbery on November 26th, but he says Mitchell was the mastermind and the motive was money.
Sean's brother would always brag about how much money there was in the house. Oh man, there's always, you know, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 in the house all the time. Eric Rivera, Jason Scott Mitchell, Charles Wardlow, Benja Hunt, and Timmy Lee Brown. They entered the residence exactly the way we suspected. They had a crowbar. They pried the door open. And they proceeded to enter the house and begin to look through all the rooms looking for this money.
But they didn't find anything. Rivera says the group was getting nervous and some of them wanted to leave.
They made the decision, listen, there's only like basically one room left to look in. So that's it, let's get down to it. And that's when they attempt to enter Sean Taylor's bedroom.
So what did you do next? Keep the door. How many times did you have to kick the door open? One.
What he doesn't realize, on the other side of that door, Jackie has already been awakened by a noise. She's already woke up Sean Taylor, and Sean reaches behind the headboard of the bed and brings out the machete.
Since Sean had been charged with brandishing a firearm when he went after his ATVs, he was no longer allowed to have a gun in his possession. Instead, his machete was his only protection.
He normally would have a weapon. There were so many things that could have changed things, but, you know, what can I say?
When Rivera kicked in the door, 6'2", 230-pound NFL safety Sean Taylor was there waiting for him.
It was dark. I was looking at Jason out the corner of my eye being burnt. He was like 2 feet away. It's like in his hand, that's my shot.
He just lifted up the gun and fired it one time. And according to Eric Rivera, he just dropped right there on the spot.
Shootings are nothing new to Miami, but Sean's murder was especially difficult for everyone in the city to process.
I've covered countless shootings in Miami, and I can't tell you how many times I've written about people literally getting shot up 10, 11, 12 times and managing to survive these.
In custody for the murder of rising NFL star Sean Taylor. 17-year-old Eric Rivera has already confessed to pulling the trigger. And now detectives turn their attention to the alleged mastermind, Jason Scott Mitchell.
Jason Mitchell starts talking. He really minimizes his involvement by saying, yes, I had seen the money there before, but really we were only there to break in. I didn't have the gun. I wasn't going there to kill anybody.
In the process of confessing, Mitchell also admits to breaking into Sean's house a couple of weeks before. On that previous attempt, he'd gone by himself, but walked away empty-handed. Just a week later, he attended another party at the house and overheard Sean's brother talking about the failed attempt.
Sean Taylor's brother mentions, man, somebody broke in the house and they're so dumb they never realized that I keep all my money in a shoebox right next to the nightstand. He goes back to Fort Myers and he now decides he's got to gather more people. So he recruits his little buddies to come along with him this time and break into the house, and they're going to look for this money and they're going to find it this time.
These guys traveled from Fort Myers thinking, hey, Sean Taylor, the football star, the rich football star, isn't in town right now, so we'll have free reign. We can ransack the house. We'll go straight for the money. And that's not what happened.
Their tragic miscalculation cost Sean Taylor his life. and left his girlfriend and young daughter wounded forever.
It's kind of like, gosh, you got to be careful who you have in your circle, but then who your family members have in their circle, because you just never know who may be looking at something that you have and may want it.
Benja Hunt ended up taking 2 pairs of sneakers, and that's all I took from the house.
On the way out of Miami, they dumped the gun in the Everglades.
They took all the stuff they were wearing, and they took the gun, put it inside one of the socks, and they flung it into the Everglades, right off the road. We attempted to, but we never recovered the property.
Mitchell puts all the blame on Rivera, but it does nothing to save him from murder charges.
Jason Mitchell places all the blame on Eric Rivera because he was the trigger man. And Eric Rivera places all the blame on Jason Mitchell because he was the mastermind. But at the end of the day, the police believe that they were equally as responsible.
The other 3 assailants, Wardlow, Brown, and Hunt, all eventually confess as well.
They all ended up giving complete confessions. All the stories matched almost exactly. So we knew that we had a pretty good understanding of what happened that night.
With confessions in hand, Miami police charge all 5 of the teenagers with armed burglary and second-degree murder.
It was like the weight of the world had been lifted off my shoulders. Calling a next of kin to tell them that we figured out who killed your loved one.
But the news is bittersweet.
You have so many questions that they can't be answered. You know, you want to know what they were thinking. I want to know what he was thinking, what his girlfriend was thinking. That situation is something that nobody should ever have to be put in.
For Sean's fans and teammates, the pain runs just as deep.
This was in the middle of the football season when this happened. Your star safety is suddenly no longer there, and all his teammates are devastated.
He loved the fans, they loved him, and I actually became a Redskins fan because I've never seen a fan base so committed to their team.
As both Miami and Washington come to grips with the loss of their superstar, prosecutors ready the cases for trial. They receive some good news when one in the group decides to turn on the others.
In the first couple months after the arrests were made, Benja Hunt agreed to a plea. So he became a cooperating witness on the case.
But sadly, their early momentum comes to a screeching halt. The trials are postponed a total of 9 times due to court backups and scheduling delays. A full 6 years passes since Sean's death without any resolution.
It was a long and tortured path to get there. There was a lot of hearings, there was a lot of media coverage, there was a lot of legal fights in the run-up.
Sean's loved ones begin to wonder if he will ever get the justice he deserves.
It didn't feel too good, you know. It wasn't a good situation.
You see him go from anger to sadness to indifference to frustration, and you just run the gamut of all the emotions.
Even with all the waiting, there's still no guarantee of a good outcome.
Trials are very, very unpredictable. You're asking 12 people to agree on something. Nowadays, you can't get people to agree on basically anything. What we found out as the case went on is that there was a lot of turmoil within the jurors themselves.
And that turmoil might be just enough reason to allow one of Sean's killers to walk free.
Eric Rivera took the stand and insisted that he was forced into confessing.
After 6 long years, the first trial in the murder of NFL star Sean Taylor finally begins. Eric Rivera, the confessed gunman, is the first to face the jury.
Eric Rivera really was the main attraction because he was the trigger man. So everybody wanted to know what's going to happen with his case.
Rivera's confession is the center point of the state's case.
We finally got to see, in Eric Rivera's own words, what his account of what happened that night was.
But Rivera's defense team raises questions about the confession. They argue that Rivera's interview lasted over 10 hours, but only a few minutes were actually recorded by police. They asked the jury to imagine what could have happened in the interrogation room when the camera was off.
The defense was basically, it was a false confession. That whole time, he was being browbeaten, he was being coerced, he was being told what to say.
Rivera takes the stand and tells a much different story from what the jury heard during the video.
Eric Rivera got on the stand and he tried to blame Benja Hunt and say that he was the one that brought the gun, that he was the one who did the firing. It's a risky strategy at trial because you're still admitting to taking part in the burglary, but with a videotape confession, it probably was the only way they could handle it.
On some level, the bold move actually seems to pay off.
There was one person in that jury who did not feel comfortable sending a young male to prison for the rest of his life. Final result was what we call a compromise verdict. They ended up finding him guilty of armed burglary and the homicide, but not using the firearm.
Instead of automatic life, Rivera is sentenced to 57.5 years.
To this day, I will never forget about that trial or my dealings with Eric Rivera, is that he has never shown remorse, ever, for what he did.
The group's ringleader, Jason Mitchell, stands trial the following year in May 2014.
Jason Mitchell did not testify in this trial, which probably was the right call. His statement was played, so the jury got to hear all of it. But at the end of the day, he couldn't get past the fact that he was the mastermind and that he was the one that set everything in motion, and the jury believed it.
Despite not being the shooter, he got life. I think at that point, the remaining two realized and saw the writing on the wall. They realized that we better just plead this out and try to reduce the amount of time we're going to spend.
Benja Hunt has already accepted a 29-year plea deal. Now, Charles Wardlow is sentenced to 30 years as well. The youngest defendant, Timmy Lee Brown, takes a plea in exchange for 18 years.
I think Pete Taylor, Sean Taylor's dad, he was a little more forgiving by that time and maybe saw something in Timmy Lee Brown, maybe giving him a chance at a life someday. Benja Hunt was another guy involved that I don't believe by any means he's a bad kid. Just did something really, really stupid that ended up costing somebody's life. There's no doubt that I think when Benja gets out, that he'll be able to be a productive member of society. I hope he's learned his lesson, and I hope Timmy Lee Brown, at least, they'll come out and do something with their lives.
Nearly 15 years after Sean Taylor's murder, his legacy lives on, not only for his loved ones, but for the thousands of fans whose lives he touched as well.
There's not a day that goes by that there's not somebody talking about him, So I know he had a big impact on the world. You go to a game and his jersey is still the dominant jersey in the stadium. Lets you know that, kids that weren't even born are wearing his jersey.
I don't think it really registered even until today, totally how much he meant. But I know he was, he loved everyone and he cared for the community and family.
That one bullet changed the trajectory of his family's, his parents' life, his girlfriend's life, his young daughter, who's not going to remember much of anything about her father in person, and the trajectory of a whole football franchise. That whole franchise has been in turmoil for decades since then. It really is just a terrible story that just continues to percolate.